What's good, everybody? Pete D. Camarillo here for Touchdowns and Tangents. Man, it's been a day. We've been taking over the IG for the Good News radio station, so shout out to them. To my right, as always, it's your favorite half of Touchdowns and Tangents, my favorite half of Touchdowns and Tangents, Kenny Berry. How you doing?
Kenneth Berry. The generosity, the kindness, don't worry, this won't be here next week. We're probably going to say something really foul to each other next week.
But yeah, man, shout out to the Good News radio station. Shout out to the Good News Sports. Shout out to FBC Radio. Shout out to X Squad affiliates. Shout out to everywhere else you can find this podcast. You know, we thank you for tuning in with us right now. We're going to have a really live show this week. We got a guest calling in talking a little bit about COVID's impact on CIF, as well as, you know, his impact, the impact on him as a journalist. And then, of course, you know, we'll get to all the NFL content, transactions that have happened.
The Earl Thomas situation, schedules came out. But back to our special guest who will be calling in any minute now. Connor Morissette, he's been on the show before. Previous community conversations. Last time it was a little bit different. I talked to him pretty much in the height of the football season. It was just kicking off for high school football, and everything was shaping up to be really exciting. And then I wanted to talk to him when the Narbonne penalties and sanctions broke down, but things are so crazy. Emmanuel Douglas ended up going to another school, and I think they reneged on that. There's a lot going on. We'll get to the bottom of all of it. But Connor Morissette, Scorebook Live, you know, done a lot of great work. And it'll be interesting to see between it was probably November? No. I think I talked to him in September. So between September and now, unfortunately, when COVID happened and they shut everything down, I'd say the end of February?
No, the second week of March.
Yeah, around that time is when it just shut down all the high school sports, and it takes time for things like that to sink in.
Oh yeah, I think they did that probably the first week of March, or
because they shut down the last basketball,
week of February, something like that.
Because Sierra Canyon ended up winning a state title, but March Madness got shut down. A lot of recruits, a lot of high school players never even got to finish their senior year, and then it messes up the recruiting process. There's a lot going on. So when he calls in, we'll touch on all that and more. Hope you guys, really take something away from these community conversations the way I do, or at least close to it, because, I'm from this community. I was raised by this community. I went to Lyondale High. I've seen that school transform in the past 15 years. I've seen how high school kids are having to deal with, imagine being a freshman in high school right now. This is your experience?
Yeah, it's a lot.
Just when you thought you were going to get laid? No, I'm just kidding. Just when you thought you were going to get friends and everything was going to be awesome and you were going to take over the school? Those are people I feel sorry for. Imagine you were you transfer to a new high school, you're finally going to get to play your last year of high school, and then boom, this happens. So, people got kids, man, and sports are a huge part of that. Pee Wee, Pop Warner, all that. And with all this happening, a lot of kids transferring, staying closer to home, even some of the top prospects in the country. I forget his first name. God, it starts with a K, but Foreman, the defensive end. What do you know? Hello, caller. Hello, caller. What's your name and where are you calling from?
Hey, I'm Connor. I think I'm going to be the next guest on the show.
Fantastic. Connor Morissette, Scorebook Live, man of international mystery, and got your ears to the street out here with all this high school sports and everything going on, man. How's it been, Connor?
Good. How are you guys doing? Thank you for having me.
Good, man. Good to hear your voice.
Thanks for coming on again. Last time we talked was the height of football season. And now everything's kind of just gone up in oblivion, man. Let's just start with some football stuff. So Narbonne, they got punished. their coach, Manny Douglas. I think he ended up at another high school. I don't know if they...
Yeah, he's at St. Bernard.
Yeah, St. Bernard's. And then the recent replacement at Narbonne, did the contract get pulled from him, or did he back out of the deal?
I believe that the contract was pulled and the offer was rescinded, and that was Malcolm Manuel, the JV coach at Banning. So Narbonne is still looking for their next head football coach.
That's crazy.
And with all those kids who pretty much, I mean, the penalties are, they're still on probation for next year as well. No playoffs. The starting quarterback, Jake Garcia, he's at his, third school in 4 years now? He's at La Habra?
Yeah, he's at La Habra. There's been a mass exodus from the school, obviously, because the coaches are gone and they aren't eligible for the playoffs. So, yeah, La Habra, there's a kid at Oaks Christian. People are bouncing all around because they're not going to be at Narbonne anymore because, in their opinion, college coaches won't be able to see him. And it's a shame, but I do understand where they're coming from because not being able to play in the playoffs and then losing Coach Manny Douglas and that whole staff who has a great track record of getting guys recruited. I don't blame the guys for leaving, and a lot of them have jumped ship.
Yeah, because I know they found out on their senior night. Like, the band was there, the stadium was lit, and the ruling came down, I think, 30 minutes before kickoff? And they're just like, no.
Yeah. Yeah, they were supposed to play Banning, and then, in my opinion, that game probably should have been played, but for safety reasons, the district, the LAUSD, Los Angeles Unified School District, decided to not have the game, so that was canceled, and then they were banned from the playoffs, so that was their season. So they only ended up playing 9 games, and that last game, Banning got a forfeit victory, and it never happened.
Which is weird. It's like, how do you have a double negative? I think part of the reason was they were like, they didn't, because I saw Eric Sonheimer tweeting about it, and I remember when it was all happening, the worry was they didn't trust, Narbonne to not, go crazy on Banning. Pretty much, the players, the Banning's players' safety was at risk because these guys know they can't go to the playoffs, so they're going to go all out or something crazy was going to happen, and then they make that decision. And you have parents, angry in the parking lot, pulling their kids out of the school right then and there. And now you have this happening. As far as the recruiting goes, do you feel like that kind of changed the landscape? Or, because, as far as California recruits go, they all pretty much still left the state. At least this class did.
Yeah, so the seniors are all gone, and for the most part, those kids were already getting recruited. And I think it absolutely changes the LA City section recruiting because Narbonne, for the most part, was, with the exception of a few kids here and there at other schools, that was the one LA City school that was sending kids to go to Division I. This past year, Palisades had one, Venice had one. There were probably a couple other schools that might have had a kid go Division I, but those two come to mind. But for the most part, Narbonne was sending 5, 6, 7 kids a class, so that absolutely changes the recruiting landscape in the LA City section for sure. But besides that, I think what we're going to see in the future is maybe 1 or 2 kids here or there from the section will be going Division I, and that will be it. So in my opinion, it absolutely changes the recruiting landscape of the LA City section, and they take a hit there.
And with that, you have Corey Foreman pretty much decommitted from Clemson. I know Clemson had that rule. So once you pretty much commit to Clemson, you can't go on any other visits. And right now with the COVID-19 situation going on, a lot of players I'm noticing, at least who are going to be seniors coming up, they're kind of shying away from going out of state. So how have you kind of seen that play out? What have you heard?
Yeah, absolutely. And so with Corey Foreman, everyone thinks he's going to go to USC now, and that would be, if I was a betting man, I would definitely bet that he's going to USC. It looks like Drake Jackson, who's another defensive lineman at USC who went to Corona Centennial, which is where Corey goes right now, is trying to recruit him, and they're taking pictures together and stuff. I think that's a done deal. On the flip side, Kenneth, it looks like some kids are committing to schools out of state without taking those visits. For example, Westlake defensive lineman Victory Vaca committed to Texas A&M earlier this week, and he hasn't been able to visit that school. So I think right now a lot of kids are taking those virtual tours, and because we have texting and because we have social media, those coaches are still able to recruit a lot of these kids, and I think we'll still see some commits go out of state. But I think overall, a lot of people right now are waiting and putting it on hold because everything is up in the air. Usually the spring is the time when we'll see a ton of commitments, and we have seen some, but I think we would have seen more, obviously, if it wasn't for this situation, because kids could go visit schools, and if they like it, they'd commit. If they don't, they'd keep their options open. But I think more kids are keeping their options open, which, to your point, I think is good for the local schools. If this goes on for a lot longer, I think we'll see more kids commit to USC or to UCLA because they've seen those schools before. They're familiar with them. They're from the area, obviously. And I think that bodes well for the local schools for sure. And if you look at the 2021 class for USC, they're cleaning up. They're doing a lot better than they did in 2020. And I don't want to say the pandemic has something to do with that, but they're doing better in general. And maybe in the future, if this continues, the pandemic will help them even more and they can get some more kids.
Yeah, because I know like Utah, they had, about 7 guys drafted, but they still have Jordan Wilmore going in this sophomore year. They've pulled in a lot of California talent. Oregon, obviously, the King's ransom,
Yeah.
But when it comes to USC, it's all these schools and like the high school landscape because, there are new rules. What have you seen, at least from high school coaches, and how they're handling all this? The COVID situation, recruiting.
Yeah, right now it's a lot of weekly Zoom chats with the teams to take the temperature on how the guys are doing, just make sure everyone's healthy, doing all right. And then there's kind of a divide. Some coaches are really pushing their kids to work out at home and get better and, do whatever they can to stay in shape. And then there's another half of coaches that are just kind of like, all right, lay low for right now. Take this time off to rest, get your bodies ready, and when we can get back, we'll get back. So I've noticed a divide like that. But for the most part, and I think this is true nationally, coaches can only push kids virtually to do so much. I think it's all about how motivated a kid is and the setup that they have at home. Even if they don't have a great setup, if you're really motivated, you'll still be able to work out and do whatever you got to do for the most part. But obviously it helps if you have equipment and whatnot. So I think right now it's kind of an internal struggle with kids. It's like, yeah, I'm excited for the upcoming season. I'm going to work really hard. But I think on the flip side, there are also kids who are like, let's rest. Let's use this time to get better, just kind of mentally and relax a little bit. Let's rest up. And I think some coaches are okay with that. I've seen both strategies, and we'll see how it pays off in the fall or maybe even in the winter when football is played, what strategy will win out. I think all things considered, the teams that will be the best will be the ones that have great senior leadership. And I think that's going to take teams very far this upcoming season because people will be held accountable, and the teams with great seniors will have worked hard during this period because, they're on their underclassmen.